jab them up the backside with the bayonet was a good way of getting them to stand still. But there was too many instances of the jock walking round the corner with a rifle at the ready, and an Arab run round the corner at the other end, and he would run into the bayonet.
We suffered a lot. There was someone working for me, and when he went out during the curfew, he was badly beaten up by the British. They only let him go after they thought he was dead.
The Arabs, we never really liked the Arabs. To us, they were just smelly, dirty people. They probably great friends to each other, but to us jocks, they're just smelly, dirty people. And we treated them like smelly, dirty people.
The British were strict and made the people suffer. They had the power and firearms. It's similar to what's happening in Iraq.
Set up headquarters in the Chartered Bank in Crater. He devised his own military strategy for the Argyles to carry out.
The plan A was to kill terrorists, and to take care of terrorism. And luckily, we're allowed to do that. I propose to stay here, if I'm allowed to, with the battalion for as long as the British are in Crater. And I've just told them we're a very mean lot. I mean, we'll be very fair, But if anyone starts any trouble, they'll just get their head blown off. They'll get the message in time, This Glengarry helps a bit,
And the bagpipes help.
And the bagpipes, and one or two other things.
He was quite determined to dominate the situation. And previously, to shoot an Arab was not considered a very good thing to do. He disagreed. I mean, we were very, very particular. There was no massacre or beastliness at all. It was very disciplined.
When we were in Crater, they had a code word, portcullis, and that was our word to stop everything on the street. Cars, taxis, people in camels, people walking along the road, they had to stop and stand still. That way, if there was any guilty people, they'd be the only ones that would be running. So therefore, they'd be the target. We had a grenade incident. Portcullis come down in the area, and we started to search the area. We had the locals up against the wall and all the rest of it. And as we were starting to search, one broke and run. He was told to stop, shouted the words to stop several times. Still didn't stop, and I had to shoot to kill. And I took him out, and that was as simple as that. If he didn't stop, he was dead, and he was dead, and that was it. At the time I was cool, but after it I was shaken inside because I realised I'd just taken somebody's life. But if he'd have stopped, he wouldn't have been dead.
I was told to go out and keep my eye on the bodies that was piling up outside the bank. Because when I went out, there was about half a dozen bodies piled up, and I was told to sit there and guard them while I was having my breakfast. Yeah, the flies were terrible. They were.
كان في واحد من هذول أصحاب الشواشة الحمر أي حاجة يعني يكون مربوش مجنون.
One of those soldiers in the red hat used to go after people and kill them, and he didn't spare anyone, even the mentally retarded. They put fear into everyone's hearts.
Mitchell extended his policy of shooting Arabs he considered a threat when he learned that nationalist guerrillas were attacking the British and retreating to the safe haven of mosques. He ordered Argyll units to monitor anyone suspicious looking who'd entered a mosque.
You're full of anticipation. He was going to come out in a minute, or next minute, and you get tired with the heat. It was very, very hot there. So we're all waiting for this moment he was going to come out. And when he did, we got him.
Religious leaders organised a petition protesting about the brutality of British troops. Mitchell's actions were worrying Middle East Command.
Philip Tarr issued an order through Aden Brigade to tell us to throttle back, to play it less rough with the terrorists. I think the throttle back order showed a complete lack of understanding of what the real situation was and what we had achieved from the powers that be.
If you find you've got a situation where you want to employ soldiers because you can't control it with policemen, then you must employ them as soldiers. You can't bring them in and expect them to perform like constables on the beat in the middle of London. Having admitted that it's a military problem, they must hand it over to the military to carry it out in their way.
Colin was, as I say, very, very difficult man. I mean, his generals found him very, very difficult to work with, and they were never quite sure that the force he was using was really necessary. It was a mistake to go on killing people in Aden when we were about to leave.
He used the media extremely well. And I was used as ITN's reporter, but the whole media were used. He was everybody's hero. And I think he was fully conscious of the idea that if he created the right media image, it would make it much harder for them to punish him.
45 Commando.
Mitchell also ordered suspected members of Arab nationalist groups to be brought in and questioned in the basement of his headquarters.
Right through, the V shape at the top.
I was in the recce platoon. I was classed as one of the body snatchers. We were told, we were given information about the NLF and Flossie, I believe. We were given addresses where they lived. We went in there, took them out, brought them back to HQ Company, which was the Chartered Bank, handed them over there. When such suspects were being interrogated, I could hear the stick cracking the skull, the butt of the rifle cracking the chin. You could hear these things. You could hear the questions being asked in Arabic. I didn't know, I couldn't speak Arabic, so I didn't know what they were asking. You could hear the pleading of the Arabs. Another crack in the skull, another question and an answer. That's what I heard.
Reports of abuse by the Argylls received scant attention.
The Arabs have always got a raw deal in the mainstream British media, so there wasn't a lot of sympathy for them. And once you've massacred 8, 9, 10, 20 British soldiers, you cease to have sympathy with most of the press corps who want British heroes. So I don't think there was a predisposition on the part of many reporters to be all that concerned with what might have been the behaviour of British troops.
There's a lot of things we cannot tell. Things that happened in Crater City that we cannot tell the outside world about.
Why?
I reckon half the battalion we get done for murder. They're still catching war criminals from the last war. And that was 70 years ago. We're only talking 30 years ago. I can't tell you anything. I can't say, I'm sorry, I can't say anything more about that. And you shouldn't be asking me anything like that.
The Argylls under Mitchell in Aden were a law unto themselves. I mean, I can't think of a time when a colonel has so totally defied the entire political and military high command and gotten away with it.
It is urgently necessary that a new government should take over. I recognise the nationalist forces as representatives of the people and am ready to enter into discussions immediately with them.
Outside Crater, it was chaos in Aden. In September 1967, the British-backed Federation collapsed, and the Nationalist Party's rivalry turned to civil war as they vied for power. Only in Crater did the Argylls continue to suppress nationalist activity and impose British rule.
We were very proud of the fact that we reached a situation when there were no incidents and no casualties. And we'd achieved that because of Colin's policy of dominating the whole of Crater.
I didn't think we killed enough of them. I think a lot of the NLF and a lot of Flossie kept their heads down and we couldn't find them. We didn't know who they were or where they were. But it would have been more satisfaction if we'd got more of them.
If you'd been a soldier at the turn of the century, your objectives would have been much clearer, wouldn't they, than they are now?
You mean I'd have been a nigger-bashing imperialist?
Perhaps.
I probably, yes. No, I believe that this is the national malaise, isn't it? I mean, nobody really knows what they're on at home, and we watch ourselves going from being a, first, second, third, and how far down rate power. And it's all mixed up with everything you read about, LSD and both sorts of LSD, and the lack of leadership, and the political aspects which one can't comment on as a soldier, but as a human being, as an individual, as a British taxpayer, a private citizen too, in one sense, one feels about this. A lot of people feel terribly strongly about it. You do. I'm sure you do.
In November, the British government told the Argylls to leave Crater to their enemy, the Arab nationalists they'd suppressed for the last 5 months.
On the night of the withdrawal, we were told that it had to be done discreetly and quietly and with no fuss and nobody realising we were doing it. That was the most unimaginative order to possibly obey. How could the Argylls come out of Crater without a bit of show? We had the world's press. Philip Tower did come down, and he was obviously extremely angry that his orders hadn't been obeyed, and he said, "You bloody Argylls are at it again." And I said, "Sir, you may not say that about the Argylls in an Argyll mess. Please will you leave?" And his ADC was there, and he said, "You can't speak to the General like that." I said, "In my own mess, I will speak to the General exactly as I like." And we sent for the General's stick and his hat, which was presented to him on a silver salver, and he was asked to leave.
The next day, the High Commissioner took the farewell parade.
After 128 years, Britain was pulling out for good. The job of keeping law and order was signed away to the former terrorists of the National Liberation Front.
I always think that Richard Turnbull, who was next to the last governor, was very right when he said when the British Empire finally sinks beneath the waves of history, leave behind it only 2 memorials. One is the game of association football, and the other is the expression "fuck off." I felt sorry that they'd had to leave, but I knew perfectly well that they had to leave, and I think our last governor, Humphrey Trevelyan, was quite right to suggest that when we finally left, the military band should play "Things Ain't What They Used to Be," because that was so much the case. Imperialism was finished then, and people who've tried in various ways to restore it since have all come to grief.
Aden was declared part of South Yemen and would soon fall under the communist influence of the Soviet Union. The Argylls returned to Britain national heroes. Mad Mitch was feted across the country.
Mad Mitch. Was it appropriate? I think it was appropriate for his cavalier behaviour. I think it was appropriate because he was challenging authority, and it was fairly rare for somebody in the British Army, even a colonel, to be constantly putting 2 fingers up to his political masters and his military masters. I think mad is not an inappropriate word.
Within months, Mitchell was passed over for promotion by General Tower and his superiors. With his military ambitions thwarted, he resigned.
And I mean, there's more poppycock and wet tripe talked about the methods that we use in aid than anything I've ever heard. A great many Arabs are alive today because we use these methods, and a great many Argylls are alive today because we use them. And this, to me, is the complete exoneration of anything, if we needed exonerating, which we don't. Never have. Never have.
The Argylls recently saw active service in Iraq. Colonel Mitchell tried careers as a war correspondent, a Conservative MP, and a mercenary. But he always regarded Aden as the high point of his career. He died in 1996. For the British who served in Aden, the summer of 1967 had proved the most chaotic and humiliating chapter in the closing stages of empire. Next week, Britain's empire warriors are confronted by Jewish guerrillas in British-controlled Palestine. Facing spectacular attacks like the bombing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, Britain's experience in Palestine would prove to be a defining encounter with urban guerrilla warfare.